I'm gonna talk tonight on folding energy. I'm gonna revisit um, why folding energy is important, how to do it, and what benefits you'll get by learning folding energy, which is a big part of the IST program. I mentioned before that learning IST is actually pretty complicated in the beginning. Uh, First couple years, depending on how often you come, how often you participate, it can get a little bit more confusing perhaps to some maybe. And before things start to make sense and you make those connections, I've said before that folding energy, like all the other principles that we attempt to embrace and learn, don't try to remember it. Don't like put it into some order that I have this is no. Internal system is a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of different things to put together. I use the analogy of a puzzle, like a puzzle. There's many different pieces to the puzzle, and um, whichever one is good for you at the moment of time when you're training, then you just focus on that one. And then, because any one principle that you work on, in actuality, you're already working on other principles. So one is not exclusive on its own, meaning that, let's say, folding energy. If you do folding energy, which is where the waist is located, and you work on that, you're actually working on other principles already, because one is not on its own in learning how to do it because they all kind of connect. So just know that uh, learning IST long term, understanding it, is finding what works for you at your current time, continue to foster that, and then when you're comfortable with that principle, then you can move on to the next one, and so forth and so on. So folding energy is one of those principles that is what I'm going to talk about today. So why we need to learn folding energy? Because folding energy is actually what connects upper and lower. It plays a big part. It's part of your alignment. It's part of how energy moves from top to the bottom. It's part of when you're doing drills, you're generating energy. It has to go somewhere. You want it to go down. When somebody is giving you energy, if it doesn't has a place to go, or if the folding energy is not properly done correctly, or you have leaking energy, then as a result, uh, it becomes compromised in what you're learning. Okay, so that's the reason why you need to learn it. It plays a big role. It's also in stillness training. When you're doing arm bridge, when you're doing the three-part standing meditation, jongs, you're actually unfolding energy. Okay, in stillness, you're already unfolding energy, and when you're doing dynamic movements like the song gong that we did today, the meditation walking, they all have folding energy because we want energy to flow. So as a result, the configuration, the contortion of how the waist and the hips are all set up, you're actually doing folding energy already. And you learn to recognize it more and more, both in stillness and in dynamic movement. So, how do we do folding energy? Just a demonstration here. So, how to do folding energy? We talk about it many times. The knees have to be bent. Okay, that's part of the configuration of doing folding energy. When the knees are bent, it allows for like a conduit for energy to flow through. Okay, so folding energy, let's say, for example, we have one leg back, one leg forward. Um, it's important that the tailbone is gently tucked in. Okay, gently tucked in. We don't want to do it that strong, otherwise it becomes rigid and tense. So it's using your mind to gently, this part, tuck it in. We don't want the butt going out. We call that drapigu. We don't want that. We don't want this to go out. We want it to come in. Once it comes in, you're tucking in the tailbone. The pelvis, you gently tilt it kind of in a downward slanting position, if that makes sense. Okay. So this way everything is kind of contorted to go down, and you want that feeling. And in folding energy, the hips, they must go in. If the hips do not go in and they go out, then it's like you close the door. Yeah, it can look like you're doing low cross stance, you're doing folding energy, but if the hips are not mindfully going in, then this way you're actually stopping it. You're not letting it go through. So make sure your hips go in. And when the hips go in, the tailbone needs to go the opposite direction. So hips are going in, tailbone is going out. So you have this duality of something going back, something going forward. But that's done energetically to create the folding energy. Now, one of the students, Dom, he asked me a question that was actually very enlightening. It was very, very, very good. He says, Wayne, when I'm doing rotational rooting, my folding energy, it's hard for me to do it because I feel like in folding energy, all the parts need to be in positioning. And then when I do a rotation, I feel like I'm going to lose that folding energy. And my response to him was like this: the folding energy that you have when everything is set in place, the hips are in, the knees are gently bent, the tailbone is tucked in, the chest is sinking, everything that's doing its role to get folding energy. The folding energy can stretch. It can stretch, it can contort, it can move in any 360 round ball while still maintaining the folding energy. And when you're doing folding energy correctly, always, always, the bottom of the feet must be GOES. That's a part of the setup, the configuration of how folding energy is lined up. So, take for example, when we're doing two-part rotational rotational drill, when we both feed each other, sometimes we're doing the role now where someone's giving me energy. I can go very far back. Of course, you have to develop the flexibility in your back, but you work within your range, right? You can go as far back as you like, providing you have the flexibility range and you develop that. And it's like your back is really low and your legs are right here. But that's okay as long as you're still GOES, and what you're doing is that you're stretching that folding energy. Okay, because the folding energy is not rigid, it's not static, it's agile, it's versatile, it can move in different directions, providing that you're doing it correctly with the hips in and everything that I just described. So when we're doing unscripted push hands, and we have quite a few videos on that. We do it all the time. That's usually the last part of the drills that we're doing in person. I watch some of the videos that the students are trying to disrupt my center. My folding energy does not waver. It stays there all the time. I could be moving back, moving forward, side, left. I still maintain my central equilibrium. And as a result, the energy knows how to find its equilibrium and go down to the ground. Of course, sticking plays a big role. The clear mind plays a big role. Everything plays a big role. But the folding energy is a constant when you're doing two-person push hands. Now, if something happens where someone is giving you energy as we're developing and you lose your center, it's because of folding energy. It got off alignment. Now your upper and lower is not connected, and energy doesn't know where to go. When energy doesn't know where to go, it's going to pull you whichever way it's going. And as a result, undoubtedly, you're going to lose your center. Okay, so we do these drills not for competition. We do it to help manifest what is folding energy, what is proper alignment, and learning how to receive and release, of course, which is part of Song Gong training. So when we're practicing, just be mindful of folding energy as one of the components of this big pieces of puzzle and what we need to do in IST. When you're standing, you're doing folding energy. When we're moving in stationary positioning, you're absolutely doing folding energy. And when we're stepping, doing a Tai Chi form, so forth and so on, you're absolutely doing folding energy. You know it's right when you could do the release and feel that it's going to the ground. So I met up with Ethan today. We did some practice. He was nearby in the neighborhood, so we practiced for a little bit. One drill that we did, and check out the video, is when he puts energy onto my chest. He comes in at whatever percent that he wants, and I could release it. And suddenly he's falling. And the reason why he's falling is because I become a conduit of energy. And then why I could become a conduit of moving energy in dynamic form is because of folding energy. I allow for that to contort correctly and I could release it at will. And that's a really nice feeling because it's part of the development of why we do IST, how to be a conduit, how to stay connected to Earth's energy, and to keep fostering this big cycle, which is important for good health and among the many things that we talk about. Okay, so that's on folding energy. We'll come back to it again in the future as you folks make more progress. When I talk about it, you'll connect with it much more. Okay, so